You know, he can say that it wasn't a war plan, but it was a minute by minute accounting of what was about to happen.
Oh boy, where do we even start? Because I'm sure you've heard the news. An editor from The Atlantic has accidentally been added to a text thread in which government officials were talking about Houthi strikes, congratulating one another, and this is being called a massive security threat and risk by nearly every single Democrat ever. So in this video, we will be going over all of the most recent meltdowns pretty much on every single news network because there's a lot to get through. Now, before we start the video, please like the video. It's the #1 way you can help this channel, and it helps others see the videos as well. This is a big one.
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because
Now, to be fair, when that question was asked to Donald Trump, I don't think he realized all of America, we were witnessing and reading these random text messages from high-ranking government officials, and because of Donald Trump's response, we saw a massive campaign by Democrats to make Donald Trump look bad and all of Donald Trump's staff in this text thread.
It was shocking. And I got to say, you know, all the things that I've seen happen in the last few weeks, it's taken a lot to feel genuinely shocked. But this is genuinely shocking. We're talking about incredibly sensitive, highly classified information that they didn't just discuss on an unclassified system. They sent war plans to the wrong guy.
If you were up in arms over unsecure emails years ago, you should certainly be outraged by this amateurish behavior.
Now, speaking of emails, and I couldn't even believe this was true, Hillary Clinton responded and said, "You have to be kidding me." You can leave your opinions down below in the comments how you feel about Hillary's response. Now, let's get to the response of the editor. How did he even end up in this text thread? What's his story? Because it's rather interesting, and then we will get to the Republican response.
I thought it was a hoax. I thought somebody was trying to entrap me. Again, could it have been a foreign intelligence service? Could it have been a gadfly organization that tries to entrap journalists, which we know happens? I didn't know what it was or who it was. But what I did know was that the obvious answer was that this is a real conversation of the national security leadership of the United States. Seemed improbable to me because why would they do it on Signal? Why would they do this on a messaging app? And why would they invite the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to watch?
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign.
Now, according to Pete Hegseth, there was no classified information being shared in the text thread that had to do with Houthi missions. Now, the Atlantic editor-in-chief says otherwise. I will actually show you the response he has to Pete Hegseth, but first, we have an amazing sponsor because of you guys. Alright, this video is sponsored by 1775 Coffee Company. What if your morning coffee didn't just wake you up? What if it actually made you younger? Sounds like BS, right? Well, it's not. 1775 went ahead and made Rejuvenate. And no, it's not some scam cooked up by corporate hacks trying to sell you snake oil. It's got CAAKG, clinically proven to fight aging at the cellular level, and yeah, it works. Now look, you're still getting the same freedom-fueled 1775 coffee you love, single origin, small batch, and ethically sourced from the kinds of farms that probably hate big government as much as you do. But now it boosts energy, fires up metabolism, and cranks back your biological clock by up to 8 years in just 7 months. Yeah, that's backed by studies. I'm not pulling this out of nowhere. Now, 1775 Rejuvenate officially launches April 15th, so mark your calendar. But you can lock in your pre-order now, and every dollar you spend enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash, which is awesome. Head over to 1775coffee.com, use promo code T-SPLY, capital T-S-P-L-Y, for 15% off, and drink your age away with coffee that delivers real results. No corporate coffee here.
All right, moments ago, Caitlin Collins was reporting on her show, Scott, that there is shock inside the White House that this chat was texted to Jeffrey Goldberg. Are you shocked?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a shocking thing, and they've admitted that it was a mistake and admitted that it's authentic, so they're owning up to it. I think they're still, based on what I've heard tonight, trying to figure out how it happened. I'm not sure the National Security Advisor Walls even knows Goldberg. In fact, I don't believe he knows him and has never met him. I did learn a few things in some of my conversations, if you're interested. One is that the Signal program was preloaded on a number of devices and agency computers in this circuit when they got there. So in their view, it was already in use. Number two, in some of the messages, they talk about needing to go to the high side computers, which is the classified system. So they clearly were knowing there was a line on what you could discuss in a chat like this versus classified system. Number three, there is a dispute over whether the term war plans is being exaggerated. And number four, look, I love the policy. It's well executed. You've got a thoughtful policy discussion going on. And we did what the Biden administration would not do, stop these people from harassing our shipping lanes and our boats and our Navy. So good on the Trump administration for reversing a bad policy.
Now, what's interesting is we have quite the divide on how people are reacting to this news story. On the Democrat side, especially government officials, this is the worst thing we've ever seen. You put military personnel at risk. Everybody here needs to be investigated. You could possibly go to jail for this. But then on the Republican side, and Scott Jennings really represents this, Republicans are saying this was not a good thing. This was a mistake. However, when you look at the text messages, it's not even that bad. They're just going over policies we agree with. I mean, even Sean Hannity is calling this a mistake, by the way.
Instead, they are obsessed with an accidentally leaked text, a chain from Trump cabinet officials who are debating the merits of military strikes in Yemen. So the very people that covered up their president's severe cognitive decline, lied about wide open borders, both of which are clear and present dangers to our country, now want you to believe that they actually give a damn and care about national security. More feigned, phony outrage. This is now the scandal of the week that you will see nonstop.
There should absolutely be a congressional investigation so that we can understand what happened, why did it happen, and how do we prevent this type of national security breach from ever happening again. This is reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous. Who are some of these people that Donald Trump has put into the most sensitive national security positions in America?
Now, the big question everyone has, did the Atlantic editor-in-chief actually see the text messages that were supposed to be classified information as far as mission plans for the Houthis? Here's what the editor-in-chief has to say of the Atlantic.
Nobody was texting war plans. Given you were privy to this group chat, is that how you saw it?
No, that's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential, too technical, and I worry, honestly, that sharing that kind of information in public could endanger American military personnel. But no, they were plans for the attack. They were texted before the attack.
Now, this is very important because according to Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, he is not denying this text thread exists. However, Pete Hegseth is denying that there was any classified information shared. I just want to make sure you guys know that.
Or, to somewhere where it shouldn't be, which is on a social media.
Well, it goes to the nature of the information, right? Is it is it secure enough, or did it reach the level of classification that it couldn't have been shared? I don't know the answer.
This wasn't a fun group chat to decide what we're going to order Sweetgreen for lunch. This is human lives on the line that was happening imminently. I don't care if you mixed up the trade representative's initials with a reporter. The reality is that if you had added someone who wasn't a responsible journalist, they could have leaked that immediately to the wrong sources, and American lives could have been lost. That is what we are missing here. So if there is not consequences for this, what does that say about how we uphold our values as Americans? What does that say to our foreign adversaries that people can be that reckless and get away with it? What does it say to the millions of people who are putting their lives on the line every day for this country that their leader is being so reckless?
Now, speaking of consequences, I will admit the Trump administration is being rather quiet, but it looks like Mike Waltz's future might be at risk, if you will, as far as still having a job. Now, a senior administration official told Politico on Monday afternoon that they are involved in multiple text threads with other administration staffers on what to do with Waltz, following the big report that the top aide inadvertently included Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg in a private chat discussing a military strike on Houthis. Again, this is going to be a big thing for Donald Trump because the whole world is watching to see what the response will be. And I do want to mention, again, no one is denying that this text thread actually existed. What people are denying, Pete Hegseth, is the classified information being discussed in the text thread.
Senator Hawley, I'll just read part of this piece in The Atlantic. The world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern on March 15th that the U.S. was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. And this reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg, writes that I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is that, again, this is the article in The Atlantic, that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing. Senator, your reaction to this?
Well, I thought what the Secretary of Defense just said, Laura, was an outstanding statement. And listen, I mean, we don't know how much of this is accurate or not, but it looks like even if everything the Atlantic reported is true, it's the president's advisors discussing among themselves options they might recommend to the president. And nobody can deny the success of what the president is doing here, which is what Pete Hegseth just underscored. And this is what the leftist media is reduced to. They can't argue with the policies, which the American people support. They can't argue with this new demonstration of American strength that is keeping Americans safe at home and abroad. And so now we're griping about who's on a text message and who's not. I mean, come on.
Are you concerned about Trump officials transmitting classified war plans on unsecured channels?
Listen, the administration, as I understand, I just was with the president in the Oval Office just now. The administration is addressing what happened. Apparently an inadvertent phone number made it onto that thread. They're going to track that down and make sure that it doesn't happen again. What you did see, though, I think, was top-level officials doing their job, doing it well, and executing on a plan with precision. That mission was a success. No one was jeopardized because of it. We're grateful for that, but they will certainly, I'm sure, make sure that that doesn't happen again. I'm not going to characterize what happened. Clearly, I think the administration has acknowledged it was a mistake, and they'll tighten up and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Now, quick disclaimer. As I make this video, I don't have any official responses from like Donald Trump or the White House press secretary. Maybe when you're watching this video, you might see some response. I would love to play some responses for you, but the only one we had was the initial question from the beginning of the day and the beginning of the video, and Donald Trump didn't look like he even knew what was going on. That's not an insult. I think he was actually caught off guard because I don't think he was aware of the story at the time.
It's a sense of arrogance. And by the way, I also think it's an attempt to avoid accountability under the Official Records Act. These people have been routinely using Signal, I'll bet you, for many other types of sensitive discussions, knowing they wouldn't be filed and available for researchers or investigators in the coming years. It's really a disgraceful situation. If that had been a bunch of majors and lieutenant commanders coordinating an attack, they'd all get fired and probably be subject to criminal prosecution.
I just want to say I've spoken to two very high-ranking former intelligence officials, both of whom worked for Republicans, and they both said that they were stunned, along with everybody else, that there is no defense that this could have happened and that someone should be fired. So let me just give you a couple of quotes. I asked, would you ever set up communication like this on a commercial app? Absolutely not. There's secure video conferencing. This is not the way it's done. Quote, they broke every procedure known to man about protecting operational material before a military strike. The lack of operational security and stupidity is just stunning.
All right, we are going to stop here. Again, you can leave your comments and opinions down below how you feel about all of this. If you are still watching the video, I really appreciate it. I'm sure we are going to see more responses, more details as this goes on, because this right here is like what Democrats needed. This is now the step they can take to try and gain some trust and favor in their party if they can all be united and go after Republicans. Now, as a Republican myself, I don't think that's a good thing, but this is the reality of the situation. So anyway, if you are still watching this video, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for everything. You know, one thing that's really important on this channel is accountability as Republicans and conservatives. And if we can be accountable and we can call out our flaws and mistakes, you will only get better. Again, the main viewpoint for Republicans is this was a mistake. However, Democrats are taking this way too far if all of a sudden they care about security. Thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.